Welcome to Two Guys, Two Questions, a chaotic, unscripted podcast.
Yeah, surprise questions with no prep.
I'm Ryan Keaton, a real estate guy who's happiest with an ocean view.
And I'm Jarrod Greer, a retro toy fanatic / loather who may or may not have a Batman cape within arm's reach right now.
You definitely do.
You don't know that.
From alligators to vibrators, superheroes to existential crisis, we cover it all.
Plus, every month we'll bring in a mystery guest and try to keep things extra unpredictable.
So if you like spontaneous conversations, French bulldogs stealing the show, and two guys who think they're funnier than they probably are, then you're in the right place.
Yep. Well, enough of this. Let's do this. Two Guys, Two Questions starts now.
Hey, how you doing, Jarrod?
I'm perfect. How are you?
I'm sure everybody sees there's an extra person on the screen there, so we're very excited and lucky to have Dallas with us today. Dallas, man, why don't you go ahead and introduce us? Tell us your full name and the pronunciation. I didn't want to butcher that last, just in case. I thought it looked like Collins, but without the N, but figured I'd give you a shot. But just, go ahead and kind of introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, butchering names is a real human power, I think.
Yeah,
there you go.
Absolutely.
Dallas Collis.
Collis. Okay.
I'm joining you from the west coast of British Columbia in Canada. A beautiful, warm, but drizzly day.
Well, we would just like to say thank you in spite.
Yeah.
And that's as far as we'll go, but thank you for still being on with us today.
Good enough, yeah.
And I thought it'd be good just kind of start out at the beginning, and Dallas, just tell us a little bit about yourself and, kind of what you're doing these days, and maybe a little bit about the books, and, we can just kind of start and go from there.
Sure. My whole premise is you are a story, both of you. I am a story. That our lives are associated to our story. We identify as our story, our history. What has happened to us makes us who we are. And if I was to meet either of you live and in person, and I said, tell me about yourself, you would begin telling me your story.
Yeah.
And my whole premise is that this story is the basis to every human problem that we encounter in this world. Because how we see things is how we respond to things, is what things mean to us, is how we feel about them, and then we act on those feelings. So I had a story like many people, which has trauma, pain, suffering. We call it emotional baggage. We carry those bags with us in our life. Now, everybody has some sort of emotional baggage. The most well-adjusted, successful, you name it, human still has some baggage they're carrying with them. It may just be a niggling voice in the back of their head, or it could be something very powerful, like mine was, that told me I came out of my youth knowing I was not smart enough, not good enough, not capable, a loser, a failure. And I lived that way because we tend to live up to our story. We tend to perform at the level we think we're capable of. And we're even able to. And so I went to drugs and alcohol to try and remove the pain, to get away from the pain. All addiction is that. It's a defensive mechanism so that we don't have to face our pain. And of course, these things wear off and they become addictions that we then lose control of. And that spirals into a world of hurt for ourselves and the people around us. For me, I got really lucky. After 60 years, I woke up one morning with cancer. And over the preceding 12 months, I went through treatment, lost my home, my house, separated from my wife, lost my family, lost my business, got my health back to some degree, but ended up alone, broken, and suicidal, and still alcoholic. That was exactly 12 months. That is the greatest year of my life. I could never have wished for something better to happen to me. Sounds crazy? It opens a door. You either end your life or you get up.
Nowhere to go but
and
up.
You figure things out for once. You see the truth, and the truth is yourself and your story. And the pivotal moment, I've never believed in this hit by like a bolt of lightning. That movie sort of term struck me like lightning, and I suddenly had this epiphany. I always thought that was crazy Hollywood garbage and never really interested in that. One day, I've got a podcast on in the background. I'm chopping vegetables for a dinner I'm making, and I'm not really listening. It's a guy talking about consciousness. And he said one line, and this line hit me like the proverbial bolt of lightning. I literally dropped the knife and almost fell on the floor. And the line was, "Show me yesterday." That's it. But what did that mean? That's what my brain jumped on. Our lives are based on our history, on our yesterdays. All our knowledge that we carry in this moment of us together talking, our ability to have language, everything about us comes from our yesterdays, our memories, our experiences. When this guy said, "Show me yesterday," my mind couldn't understand the question because I am yesterday. What do you mean, show it to me? I can't go to a cupboard, pull yesterday out and go, "Look, guys, here's yesterday. What do you think?" It's not a thing. What is it? It's just a memory. What's that? It's remembering experience, my story, who I think myself is. What? That's just a story? And I let a story that I believed almost kill me. What is this really about? And that, of course, opens up a whole new world. Because if a story is just a belief, our life is just a belief. The way we behave, what we think, what we believe in is just a story. You both have believed things 10 years ago that you don't believe today. And you will believe things in 10 years that you don't believe today. So what's the truth of our beliefs? And if there is no real truth other than our belief in it, then what does that mean? Change the whole world. Because why did I need a story? Why should I carry that baggage? It doesn't exist. It's not tangible. There's no reality to it. I was traumatized at 10 years old. That's an event that happened 55 years ago. It's not happening now. Why would I be carrying it now and letting it hurt me? There's no sane reality in that. Only because we believe something. And then it was proved to me again in an even more dramatic way. When a drinking buddy from the days of the bar showed up one day in a coffee shop and told me his story, and that he had become homeless on the streets, had been put in mental care for a while, a complete addict on fentanyl and just barely surviving, almost dead. A guy came by, talked some religion, and it woke him up. So he found God and was saved. Did God save him? Or did a belief in another story save him? Of course, it's a story. Yep. If you believe a good story about yourself, your life, your wife, your love, your beauty, your kids, you have a good life. If you believe a horrific story, you have a horrific life. So what is the reality here? I mean, to me, this is fantastic. This is the message I work on now, I write about. I'm coaching with people because we are held down by what we believe about ourselves. What is the truth of that belief? Examine our stories and see that they are just a belief, something we believe in. Well, we change all the time. So direct your own story. Yeah. I say, win the Oscar for the best editing of a major motion picture. The major motion picture is you. Yeah. Why not edit your movie and make it a better movie? You're the lead actor in your movie. You're the one reading the script. We're just unfortunately pushed around by a deceptive ego that makes us do stupid shit and believe this story.
Yeah. So is that a fake it till you make it kind of message there? Is that if you believe your own bullshit, you make yourself what you want to be?
And we're doing that right now.
Yeah.
You know, people, manifestation's a big deal. It's all over the internet. Yeah. How to manifest properly. Well, the reality is you manifest every day of your life. based on what you believe about your story, you are keeping your life going. So we are faking it on a story.
Yeah.
When I said, tell me about yourself, you don't tell me about Ryan and Jarrod. You tell me about a story about Ryan and Jarrod. So we already fake it because we believe in this story. What's the truth of the story? Why should it be any different that we can rewrite a new story? It isn't any different. There's no law here about the story. And we collectively, as a world, use a collective story. The reason we can go to war and kill each other is because we believe in a story that says, you're wrong, I'm right, I'm good, you're bad. Fear, insecurity. This is just a story we believe. And we do crazy shit every day with it.
So I'm curious, when in regards to your books, specifically and what you're coaching to, there may be people listening going, you know what, I believe, I hear what you're saying. I think you're 100% right. Okay, now what? Now you appreciate it. Yeah, I understand that I'm telling myself a story and I want to go a different direction. But the reality is life has other things that get thrown in there and you can't always discard. So, is that some of the stuff that you're covering in your book?
Yeah, and my books come from the journey. At the end of this life of collapse, I started with this book here, which is on cancer. And very much a battle, a fight against cancer. And it very much is. I saw people who took the story of their cancer and died from it. And I mean that I arrived at treatment and I met people who had already given up when they arrived there. They had gone such into terror that they had failed to grasp themselves and just said, cancer has me. I'm going to die. And they did die. Now, a positive attitude of saying, I'm not going to die, I'm going to fight it, doesn't guarantee you're going to win. Of course not. Right. But I think it gives you a better fighting chance. And that's what that book was. And then in rebuilding myself, I had to say, instead of me having a life that collapsed, I need to collapse my life. And what that meant is, I call myself a 16-hour coach. And that's because I say, if a day is 24 hours and you sleep 8 hours, you have 16 hours of conscious, awake living. 16 hours is our day. What do we do in our days? We live our life. And the reality becomes, there's no tomorrow, there's no yesterday. We only ever have one day to live a life. Tomorrow you get a do-over. What a gift. You get to try again. But it's all in one day. So I said to myself, and I do this when I coach, is in this one day, could I eat a little better and fuel my body with better quality food for one day? Not go to the snacks and the garbage? Yeah, I could probably do that for one day. Okay. Could I go out for a 30-minute walk, get my body moving in amongst 16 hours? Could I put 30 minutes into some sort of physical activity? Yeah, I could do that in one day. Could I call a friend and say I love them? Look after family? Can I put a few hours of really focused, good, productive work into my work that gets me an income that pays for the roof over my head? Yeah, I can do that in one day. And that's what I did. A step system of small bites and create my life in one day. If I did one day really well, that's your whole life. You just repeat it. We're already repeating days where we don't do so well, or we're just swayed by the mood we woke up with. We sleepwalk through habits and routine behavior that we've done every day, and it's easy, and it's comfortable, and it's convenient. And often it doesn't get us where we want.
I think it's interesting because, Jarrod and I actually, this came up on one of our previous episodes, and the idea of Groundhog Day. That is my personal freaking nightmare. Just like that, if there's a hell, that would be my hell, is a Groundhog Day situation. And one of the things that I preach to anybody that'll listen, whether it be my kids or my team members or stuff like that, is if you have a bad day, you made that choice. That's on you. Bad moments come and go. That you get up and you stub your toe and someone says, well, I had a bad day. I got out of bed and I stubbed my toe and it just went downhill from there. You made that choice. You decided to just throw that day away. Same way with getting, you have a fender bender. Nobody enjoys it. Have a bad hour, 30 minutes, whatever you need to kind of process it, but get in and out of it. But I think the challenge is that so many people get stuck and decide it's just the way it's always been. And we see this a lot, dealing in kind of rural, apathetic areas to where generational that continues to go. I think but it is a conscious choice, and that's easier for some than others. I've went through times myself whenever, I love to manifest. I'm not as crazy like, I just think I'm going to see it and there's going to be an apple appear on the table. But I do believe in energy and universe and positive. And I think it's the same message that you're kind of putting out there. You've got a different kind of, verbalization of it. But it's really choices that you make every day to basically have positive energy, have those things, and that's what's going to shift and change what's happening in your life,
So I don't know about up there, but here we have a lot of people that feel like they've been generationally shit on or whatever. We're just poor white trash or whatever, So people feel like they can't get out of this area or they can't, rise above it all and, get ahead. And I hear so many people use that as an excuse for doing nothing. Why should I do anything? It'll never matter anyway,
Yep.
So that I see that a lot here, really, especially with younger kids.
So to return to your, this is all well and good to say all this, the story and everything, but how do you actually do something about it? When you talked about the mood and setting it for your day and manifesting, all these things, they come down to being awake or asleep. And what I mean is that psychologists say about 70% of our day is run on an automatic pilot. A sort of sleepwalking because we've practiced being this person for all the years we've been alive. We've practiced getting through our day for years and years. And so 70% of our time, we're not really paying real attention. We just go to the fridge and grab something to eat without thinking about what we're eating. We get the coffee in the morning, sit down in our chair, the magnet, and start watching some YouTube or whatever. It's just this kind of routine behavior that lulls us into a position that lets this happen. Thoughts come into our head that often come from emotional baggage. And so, I'm having a crappy day is a thought that enters your mind. You don't have to call for it. But when you grab it and say, yep, that's me, I'm having a crappy day, that's the spiral. And this has only happened because we're not really awake. Because if we were really awake and paying attention, we'd say, that's a stupid thought. We can see the logic or the illogic in going down these kind of rabbit holes. So one of the first things I had to do is, right behind me right now, still on my big TV screen, is a sticky note. And it says, get off your ass.
Love it.
It's the TV talking to me.
It looks like a Jarrod sticker.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah. Yep.
So that's the TV knowing I'm sitting in front of it, and it knows I should be up on my feet, not sitting on my butt. I've got a sticky note on the fridge, and it says, what are you about to put in your mouth? The idea is wherever I go in my world of my home, I have these sticky notes to do this. Wake me up. Be present right then so I make a choice instead of just doing the sleepwalking. So I think I'm at 80, 90% awake now after practicing for a couple of years. And when you're awake, you can't be drifting in yesterday and regret and worries or anxiety about what's coming tomorrow and what you have to do. Because when you're in those two places, you're not awake. You're not here. You're not present. You're floating in the imagination. And that's the 70% of our day. So that's one of the first big steps to moving forward is to get yourself to be present more often, awake right now in this moment. Because when you're here, your brain cannot go to thoughts about yesterday or anxiety about tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. When it's focused and paying attention, you can't be there. That takes away tons of baggage. When you're focused and attentive, you've got way more energy than when you're in those two places because they suck the energy out of you. That's what makes us tired. worrying about yesterday or tomorrow wears you out. When you're really paying attention, you've got tons of energy. You're happier, you're healthier because you're here. You're paying attention to yourself. So that's the big teaching I try to push. Be awake. And Groundhog Days are fine if you're doing this work and you're awake. Groundhog Days are a horror story when you're repeating the crap from yesterday and the worries of tomorrow.
So I understand letting go of yesterday. How much time do you spend thinking about tomorrow?
Almost none. And here's one thing I did. I used to be a huge goal setter.
Yeah.
I used to write down goals, every step, how I get there, what it would look like, manifesting, materializing it in my mind, thinking about it every day. I no longer set any goals. There is no tomorrow. There's only this day. The goal is to be attentive and awake this day and do my best possible work in every aspect of my life. What I eat, how I move my body, how I deal with other people, the work I do, the writing, everything. It's just what I can do this day. And it's changed everything. I get so much more done because procrastination can't exist. Procrastination can only exist if you have something in the future to go to. It can only take you to this area of thought that is, when I get there, I'll be right. And that is the difficulty in the mind. That's what comes up. Because as much as I believe I'm going to change, there's a voice in the back of my head going, you're not going to do it. Yeah, you can do that tomorrow. Yeah, sit down, relax. You deserve it. Take a break. That's the reality of the fight we have in our heads.
So Dallas, if someone were to, because I'm with you 100%, so I'm with you, but if someone is listening and they're saying, that's all well and good, but you wrote 3 books and you did this and you did that. You didn't just wake up and go, all right, whatever. There had to be something in place there. Or if you say someone like, you know what, I have a real estate business. I have 12 people that I got to show, or I do this and I do that. And I have to plan for 6 months down the line, because of budgets or those kind of things. How do you combat or, not necessarily combat, but address someone that is saying, hey, how does this really work in practical terms?
Right. Okay. Look at the evidence. That's what I would say. So what does that mean? Look at the evidence of personal development, let's say. 100 years of an industry based on how do you succeed. And goal setting is a huge part of it. Believing in yourself, grit, determination, grind, all these things are a part of this. 100 years, this industry has been pumping away. 250,000 books, $180 billion spent in it.
It's a big industry.
Huge industry.
It's a big industry.
But here's the whole point of this. In 1969, I think Stanford University did a study on goals, goal setting, and achievement. And they figured out about 95% of people don't reach their goals. They give up on their goals. They give up on their dreams. They settle for life as it is, this kind of thing. Just last year, this same kind of study was done. And guess what? 95% of people never reach their goals. We all know this is true. We see it in our own lives. We see it in friends and family, other people. So if this works, if we believe in this personal development, self-improvement cycle, it's not working. It hasn't worked. What's the reason? Well, I believe the reason is very simple. Your story is here, and it holds you in a certain limit. And we're trying to apply this personal development initiative on top of it. And the reality is you haven't changed the foundation of that house. You're putting up new walls, new paint, new windows, beautiful furniture on top of a foundation that does not support you. So I say to people today, don't believe in yourself. That's the worst thing you can possibly do. Because the self you believe in is this story that is not believing in you. That's why people don't reach their goals. Their foundation hasn't been changed. They're still believing these stories from their childhood, from their past. Limitations. All sorts of times they've fallen down, made mistakes, and didn't progress. And they keep trying to pile on this improvement. They keep wanting to paint the house, and it's going to work this time. That's the struggle. And what we're doing is externalizing our life in the future. When I achieve, when I reach, when I get, when I consume, when I buy this thing, I'm going to be happy. It's going to work. And it can't change the foundation.
All you can do is forget it? Is that where we're going with this? I mean,
yeah.
All you can do is just bulldoze the fucking foundation and build a new one?
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
You need to kill yourself so you can find yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have this self, this story from childhood that doesn't support you. You don't heal. We don't heal from trauma. It's impossible. It happened. It's a reality from 50 years ago or whenever it was. You can't heal, but you can leave it.
Yeah.
I didn't stop drinking other than stopping.
Yeah.
And what I mean is I didn't heal from my alcoholism. I walked away from it because I didn't need it. Because I needed it because I had a story that gave me such pain. I needed the medication to deal with life and not feel the pain. Once I bulldozed the foundation of the house, I didn't need the alcohol because it had no need. It had no presence. I didn't heal. I left it. We need to leave the stories or even just parts of stories that limit us and walk away. Disbelieve that part of your story or maybe the whole story. There's no evidence I can find that we need a story, that you need some history. I can't see any reason. You are here right now. And understand this isn't just your whole mind because we have a toolbox brain, right? We have a toolbox brain that we learn skills and techniques and tools that allow us to do our job, raise our kids, love each other, build a house, do whatever. Those are tools, skills. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a story mind, and a story is just a belief in things. And humans tend to have traumatic beliefs. I'm quite convinced now that birth is our original trauma. Look at a baby that's 5 seconds old and they're going, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
I mean, they're traumatized right there. Fear and insecurity, I think, is one of the bases to humans. And we latch onto. That's why you can do 10 great things in a day, screw up one thing, and go, oh, God, what a loser I am. I screwed it up, blah, 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 blah. We just did 10 great things. You can't pat yourself on the back, but you can freak out about the one thing that went wrong.
Shit, I just hope I can do 10 wrong and get one right every day. You're setting high standards over here, buddy.
Absolutely. You better set high standards.
Yeah. And I guess living in the moment, in theory, allows you to have the vision and the real estate in your mind to capitalize on things when they come your way. So tomorrow works out kind of on its own.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see, I'm not saying you can't. You need that 6-month plan.
Yeah.
You need those goals, but they're not your focus today. You set them and then you do the work that needs to be done today, because the work each day gets you to that 6-month goal.
Yeah,
a lot of people look at the 6-month goal and are constantly going when, and they're getting themselves out of the moment. And they don't do the work they need to do that's going to make that come to fruition.
Yeah, because one of the things that I teach to my team and different people that I've coached is, because for me, goals are important in a business setting, but a 6-month goal is a useless goal. 6-month goal has to be broken down into 3 months. Let's take it down to 30 days. Now let's actually take that down to a day. And depending on how structured and the person is and disciplined, we may take it down to an hour, if we need to, especially in the beginning, to help them go, okay, now I see how this works. Now I know where to get this consistency, or I can get to where I want to be. And I can find, even with personal things, it's the same way, right? It's not much different than like a 12-step AA program. Right? Yes. 5 minutes. Take a little 5 minutes at a time. Now let's get to 15. Okay, now we're at an hour. Holy crap, I got a day.
Exactly.
That's the reason they celebrate, and you get coins for every little tiny milestone, because you need that. You need to re-trigger and, kind of refocus the brain, rewire it, I guess is a better word, to understand what is needed. And whenever you have those triggers or whatever those things that are causing you to kind of go down a direction you don't want to go, having that tool set in that toolbox to go, okay, I need the wrench. Oh my gosh, no, this is a sledgehammer. I need a sledgehammer on this particular situation, or I'm going to relapse or fall, or have allow the bad stories to be told.
Yeah. So let's go to the beginning and get an agreement between all of us. And that agreement would be this. What does everybody want out of life? What does every parent want for their children? If you pin any parent down, they'll say, if they're healthy and happy, I'll be happy. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
We all do everything we do in our life to get to that place.
I tell Jarrod this daily. Yeah. I just want you healthy and happy, buddy. That's all I want.
Right. Yep. I don't think there's anything more loving you could say to someone. Yeah. So I always say to people, I go, okay, if we all agree that's the real destination. It's not the Lambo. It's not a bigger house. It's not stuff. It's the real destination is I just want to find a place where I have peace of mind, a loving heart. I'm happy. I'm content with my life. If we all want that, what's in the way? Why isn't it happening today? Right now? Every day? Why? What is in the way? Are you too happy in your work? Do you love your work?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I absolutely love what I do because, it's, I'm getting the opportunity to help people. Are there times and days it's not, this, I think everybody has those. But yeah, I think one of the things that I know Jarrod and I have talked about this, and we started thinking, okay, what's next? That's kind of been something we've started thinking about and what that is. And maybe it's something together, because we're both kind of at that point age-wise, right? We've accomplished some cool things, but you're starting on the downslide, right? You can't always
as long as it has been.
I don't think so.
It could be gone tomorrow, so which is part of one of the things that has really gotten me thinking in regards to more about that and expediting that timeline is the fact that we're not guaranteed anything. So the idea of living joy, I think that was the word we both used. I think was like, I just want to find something that gives me joy, whatever that next is. So kind of going along the lines of that, because we are two guys, two questions, but one of the questions that I have is that I hear so often, and I know how it makes me feel, and I'm very passionate about how it makes me feel, but it is a very common idea and concept is, well, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. What say you on if it's meant to be? Because that is, I can't express how many times daily I hear that. And most of the times it's whenever someone's not going to get what they want. They will say, if it's meant to be, or if they're not willing to go after it hard enough.
Because you're showing people houses and they're making bullshit offers and they're saying, if it's meant to be. Yeah.
But I hear that in every aspect.
I'm probably guilty of that myself, really.
Yeah. It happens in every aspect. But yes, I hear that constantly. So, what's kind of your thoughts in regards to, if it's meant to happen, it'll happen?
Yeah. The big change I went through did, I think, this one thing. It made me try and dissect the rational, logical thought of anything. And if it's meant to be, has no logic or rational basis to it. That's what religion is.
Yep.
That's what philosophies of the imagined is all about. That's what mysticism presents itself as, is this thought that the universe is conspiring to make everything good for you, which is a lovely thought.
Or bad.
Yeah.
Or bad.
This is the granddad image in politics. The politician who stands up and says, it's going to be okay, children. I'll look after you. And people will vote for them based on this feeling that, oh, good, I don't have to, someone's going to look after me.
Yep.
And that is where I break and go, I went through lots of thinking about, is free will existing? Does it not? The fatalism, all this kind of thing. I realized, of course, free will exists. Get up in the morning and stub your toe. You said it. You decide if that day's a piece of crap or that day's okay. That is the free will. It's not a physical thing. You don't have the free will to get the exact house you want. You have the free will to get the house. You have the free will to get what you need and want in life. It may not be exact. It's not going to be predetermined. But by your efforts, your mental efforts of deciding what you're going to do, you have that free will. And you've seen this a million times, especially in your industry. I think in real estate it is more profound that you'll hear if it's meant to be. And that's because it's such a big purchase that if you don't get the bid that wins, or, your price isn't accepted, you have to tell yourself, oh, it just wasn't meant to be. Yeah. So you don't feel bad.
Yeah. I'm really bad to use "it is what it is."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's a self-healing sort of phrase, right?
Yep.
It's just to say, it wasn't up to me. It wasn't meant to be. It's okay. Next time, maybe. And this is just soothing any pain that would come up from the story.
I always do find it.
Yeah, you're wrong.
I always do find it comical, though. That is the same person that whenever they do something, it was all them. Yeah. Now that one I had control over.
I did that right.
We are funny creatures that way,
So, Jarrod, I'm curious what your thoughts are on whenever someone says it is, or it's just wasn't meant to be.
Just wasn't meant to be. You know what? I'm kind of right there with both of you, I believe. I think we're all on the same page there. What is meant to be is what you get up in the morning and make happen for yourself. I do the whole mantra of living in the moment. I'm really bad. I'm in the event industry, so we will work all year through the office to have a 1 week or a 1 weekend event or whatever. And those weekends or weeks are very strenuous. They're a pain in the ass. But once I get there, I start telling myself, it's only 4 more days. I can do anything for 4 days. Or it's only 3 more days. I can do anything for 3 days. And that's how I get myself through it. Or I'll say, 6 more sleeps and I get to go home. or whatever, But it's meant to be is bullshit, is my 6-second opinion, I guess. Yeah. What's meant to be is what you get up in the morning and make happen for yourself. And nobody's going to do that shit for you. Ryan, you're very delicate about saying it to people, but I'm not quite as, I think, groomed as you in how I talk. A lot of times I'll just say, forget that shit. And to Ryan's point a minute ago, what you were saying about your story or your foundation controlling you, I wish there was a more practical way to say, leave that shit on the table and forget about it.
Right. Right.
But I don't know in the real world how you convince people to do that. People are so invested in their story.
Yeah, you don't convince anyone.
Yeah, okay. You just write a book and try, I guess. Is that...
Well, but I think you can present a path that someone can see as more logical and rational for them to look, at least investigate. I say it all starts with what if. What if it is just a story? That's the thought pattern that begins to open the door to the possible.
Yeah.
What if it's not a truth that I must live with? That what ifness, that ability to question our reality, is particular only to the human species, as far as we know. That we are able to actually question our own reality. And that is the pathway. Because we believe our story is true. We believe the self is me. And the self is a story. And if you can get people to begin to just question. One of the things I do with a lot of clients in the beginning is to take their phone out and record themselves on video telling their friend their story, their biography.
Yeah.
Right? And tell it like they're telling their friend. And then play it back and pretend you're the friend listening to it. To try and remove yourself, give some space from your story, and you get to see it more rationally.
I wonder if you catch a bunch of your own bullshit in that.
There you go.
I mean, really.
All the time. Yeah. One of the things all the time. People start to see, wow, I said that. That doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah.
They start seeing the cracks in the facade, and they start going, wow, what if my memory isn't that great? What if it is fuzzy? What if I've got things wrong? What if the meanings could be different? And you begin to be able to edit your story.
I think one of the things that's interesting, because this is something I've been battling internally, and I have kind of brought it up to Jarrod in regards, because this podcast has really been a beautiful little cathartic thing for us. Whether anybody ever actually latches on.
Yeah, we have no idea if anybody will ever actually.
It's been beautiful for us. And one of the things that I think it plays perfect into this conversation is the amount of times that you get asked, hey, how are things going? And your first thought, oh, work's pretty good. I sold 2 houses, or I bought some comics today, or the Comic-Con went, that's where we go. And that gets your 30 seconds. And what got me thinking that was honestly doing this podcast and coming in. Jarrod, and a lot of times whenever we get on these, we'll kind of recap or something. And what I am almost bound and determined that I'm not going to freaking do is stay in that lane, because this is such a really cool opportunity. I know I haven't told Jarrod this, but this is a really cool opportunity for him and I to really kind of take our relationship and get to know each other better.
Yeah.
And if that's taken and we're just talking work, we've done that, we've
been talking about work for 20 years.
Yeah. And that's not who we are. And that's not how we know each other. And I mean, there's intimate, they're not intimate. It's probably a little strong word. Yeah. But I mean, there's lots of details that we know, and there's lots more things important, and work's just one portion of it. So, but I think that is a go-to for most of society, is that they want to go to is like, that's where I spend the majority of my time. You ask a question, I guess you want to know about my work. No, I don't really give 2 shits if you sold 3 comics yesterday. I'm curious how Jarrod's doing.
People let their work define them. Yeah, for sure.
That's a totally different relationship, though. It's in the religious tradition of bearing witness. Yeah. A real friend bears witness to what? To your struggles. Because a real friend then knows the real you, not the superficial. How are you? I'm fine. Yeah. Made a sale. Things are good. Family's good. That's just the superficial. Those aren't real friends. Those are people we know.
Or weather.
We may get along with them. Be comfortable with them.
Yeah.
But they don't bear witness to our real self and the struggle we go through. And a real friend bears that witness. And that's why they're real deep friends. There is an intimacy there of connection, of brotherhood, that men today have really lost. And we see that being played out in a real fragility of machoism, of trying to struggle and be tough in a world that they are feeling left out of, because I think we're losing our witnesses, our brothers.
I will say that I agree with that with our demographic. What I do think is I think the younger gen, because I have 4 kids, all of them are ranging from 18 to 30 years old.
They're much better at it than we are.
They're fan-freaking-tastic at being in touch with their emotions and openly talking about it and having those conversations with their friends and talking about things that we didn't, right? Because that's, our demographic was raised by people coming out of the Vietnam, and then there's, and everything is kind of defined by our parents. And then
my 2 boys will say shit to me that I would never dream to say to my dad. And I don't know if that speaks to our relationship or their generation, but one of the 2, I guess. And I really think it's more their generation, but they're just very open and honest about everything. And they talk about shit that I never would, I think. So I strive to be more like them. I think from a mental health perspective, they're going to be miles ahead of us in 20 years,
They've got social media that they've got.
Yeah.
So they've got their own beast.
Yeah. They've lived their life telling other people how they feel today, though,
Yeah, that's true. But, when you go in that social media world, there's a tremendous amount of pain and bad mental health being spilled out, honestly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Best thing I ever did was
pouring their guts out in a supportive system that's almost, me too, I'm suffering.
Yeah.
And people are there going, yes, we're behind
suffering
you.
more than
You're so
you.
brave for saying it.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure how supportive it really is.
Oh, I don't think social media is good.
Oh, no, I don't think anybody
I
will
was
think
saying
that.
social media is kind of their problem that they're going to have to figure out how they're going to be able to cope with that and deal with that. Yeah. We didn't have that growing up, right? We had a different set. Maybe, parents just parented different, and they've got the benefit of having, in my opinion, they have kind of a better mental health aspect in regards of being able to talk to it, being able to be a little more open. I see male friends. I can see my son-in-law and my son, they're having conversations with their friends that I didn't get the opportunity to whenever I was in high school, because that wasn't what you did.
Yeah.
My dad's 75 years old, and he still tells me all the time that I should never let people know how I feel about anything. He gets pissed off at me over social media or anything like that. Don't let those people know how you feel or whatever, because they'll think you're weak. They'll think they're going to hold you back because you're weak or whatever. And that's just my dad's mentality. And I guess it worked for him. He's been moderately successful, but at the same time, I wonder half the time what's really going on in my dad's head, because I don't think he's ever told anybody what goes on in his head,
Right.
But anyway, so we got to get another question out of the way, and I had one that sort of ties into this, but it's I don't know. I can probably loop it into this. Ryan, the one thing I don't know about you is when you were young, when you were a kid, I'm saying I'm not super young, but like 12 to 18 years old. What did you want to be when you grew up, and what kept you away from that? Why aren't you that today?
It's interesting. Whenever I was growing up, it was all about sports.
Yeah. So we all want to be a professional ball player.
Wanted to be a professional athlete. That was, my dad, whenever I was growing up, we didn't do vacations. Vacation was my dad played softball, so it was at a softball field, and I got to go to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and that was my vacation.
Yeah. I'm going to go watch Dad play softball.
Yeah. But I love sports, so I don't remember at the time thinking, gosh, we don't get to go on vacation. I was thinking, okay, cool, I get to go hang out with Dad's friends and watch him play softball and go over on a different field and play what we called cup ball, which was taking a little cup and putting it together and hitting it with your hand. But so, yeah, I mean, whenever I was younger, that's what I wanted to do. And then what happened as I got to like my senior year and that kind of stuff, which bled over into college, is I didn't have a clue what I wanted to be when I grew up. Yeah. I knew that there were certain things I liked. I liked being in kind of an entertainment space and stuff like that, but that didn't seem like a real dream because I was in, rural Ashland, Kentucky.
Hey, you're letting your fucking story hold you back there.
And I was whenever I was younger. Yeah. That was the it. And it wasn't until I probably was 40 before I realized, okay, I kind of really like this. And it took a trauma, funny enough, of losing a job where I was like a number one sales agent in the nation for this multi-billion huge company that just decided we're getting rid of 73% of the company today, including this from the CEO up. Stay at home, we'll call you and let you know which route it goes. I ended up not a job. And I was like, you know what? That's never happening to me again. I'm going to go do real estate because I can have a brokerage tell me they don't want to work with me. But guess what? I can find another one, or I'll just start my own because I'm self-employed and I'm driving my own ship. Yeah. And it was a very conscious decision to do that. But, whenever I was younger, it was, I don't know that I had any grand dreams. One of the things that I really tried to instill in my kids as they were growing up is I just want you to be happy. Don't go chase money. I feel like I was kind of raised somewhat. It was never really implicitly told to me, but I just knew you had to work hard, and you need to work hard because you need to make money, because if not, you're going to not be able to pay the bills. That's kind of what was taught to me. And you have to go to college, period. End of story. There's no other way to be a success without going to college. So that's how I grew up.
Do you still believe that?
Absolutely not, 100%.
Okay.
No, I think it's garbage. Okay. I think it can help you, but I think it's garbage that you can't get to where you want to be.
I see so many people go to college and get degrees to do things that they could have done without a degree. Like I had a guy that worked for me that got a degree in writing because he wanted to be an author. Just write a fucking book, man. Just sit down. Yep.
So to me, that kind of focused my entire early years of life was like, okay, I got to get a job. Now I got this job. I got to make more money. Oh, okay, cool. I'm making good money, but no, I need this little shiny toy over here. I got to make more money. Then I got to get to this. Probably one of the biggest realizations for me was I got my dream job, selling pharmaceutical sales, and I loved it. Really good money, fantastic job. I really liked it until I didn't. And once I did, and I'm like, oh shit, what do I do now? Because, it's not like I made like crazy money, but I made really good money for this area. Now you can't pivot out of that, because you can't go down. So that's one of the things I tried to teach my kids is just be happy. Love what you do. And if you love it, it's not the old adage, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. That's not reality, but it won't feel like as much work if you actually love what you're doing and you're doing something that brings you joy. So that's really what I continue to try to teach my kids and talk to them about. And if that's college, I really want you to go to college, and I think it's a good opportunity. But, my oldest daughter graduated from college. My son tried really hard. It just wasn't for him. Now he's doing something that he loves and he enjoys it. I wouldn't say he wakes up and goes, oh, wow, I get to go do this every single day. But for the most part, he enjoys it. And it's what he chose and he wanted to do. He eventually made that happen. And my youngest daughter, which is 19, has just started kind of going down the path I am, which, she's been talking about for a couple of years. So I just want my kids to be happy. Like full circle of what you said, Jarrod, right? Yep. That is, and I wish I had gotten more of that when I was younger. And I don't think my parents did anything wrong. I just think that was they were using the best knowledge that they had. They both came up from very poor circumstances. My mother was one of 9 kids in really rural East Kentucky, lived back up in a holler. He'd drive them like a mile back up a gravel road.
Hey, wait a minute. Do you know what a holler is?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Good clarification.
Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I understand why they felt that way, and I understand why that happened. But I think that's just where you want to take the information you learn and try to be a better version of yourself as you get older, and with each day learn something, and then try to pass as much of that as you can off on to your kids, so that way they start making and moving in directions that gets them to their joy. Because, I would be incredibly sad if my kids were 40 or 50 years old and still have that the story mentality of hearing the Groundhog Day, or I'm sad because I can't do this, and they're not just living, I think it's unrealistic. And I wish I was one of those people that is just incredibly happy all the time. There's not many of those, but you know who those people are, right? It's just like whatever you see, they're always happy. I would love to be that way. I don't know if I'm chemically made up, and I try to be that way.
That's your story talking.
And yeah, but
that's what I believe.
I would love to get to the point to where Dixie, my wife, I don't know that there's a happier person, at least on the exterior, and for the most part, I think the interior. The girl's just always happy. She's going to make it good out of it, and that I feel like if we joke, that's part of what balances us, because I'm genuinely happy, but I'm not that happy, I guess. And that's what I strive to be. That is probably what the next is for me is, but part of that is environment. And granted, that may be a story that I'm telling myself, but I mean, it's funny when we go on vacation. I'm a beach guy. I'm an ocean guy. I love the freaking ocean. I'm instantly at peace and instantly almost become a different person whenever I am at the ocean or on a beach or something. The vacation is just, I'm more relaxed. I compartmentalize and work is gone. Even though I'm self-employed and it's my baby, I still put it to bed for the most part, unless it's a major thing that needs handled. So that's what I strive, is for that feeling all the time.
And to me, that feeling is the connection to your real self.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
That's why
yep.
When you can get someone to go take a walk in nature, in a forest or something, and they'll suddenly feel this stress release.
100%.
And it's just a connection with life. And that's where we're supposed to be. Doesn't mean you're supposed to be walking in a forest all day, but it is the same mentality. Because the forest didn't change you. Your story just diminished in your brain, and you felt the real you just connecting to the world and going, wow, it can be really peaceful and nice.
Yep.
And that feels good inside.
So Dallas, to put a bow on this, tell us where to get your books.
We live in a world where if you have someone's name, they can't hide.
That's very true. It's very true.
So everything's on Amazon. The latest book is this one here. It's called The Gift is the Present. Okay. And the whole idea is the gift is the day.
Yeah.
Right? Your day is your gift. What are you going to do with your gift?
Yeah, fair enough.
And so, Dallas Collis at gmail.com. Done.
Fair enough.
So do you have a question for us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Never thought about that part. Shit.
When you talked about how this is cathartic.
Yeah.
I tell everyone who's doing a podcast that I'm so in admiration of you both, because you're on this leading edge of a new democratization of voices that doesn't rely on experts and the fields of knowledge. They are people sharing what they think.
Yeah.
And your catharticism between the two of you comes out to other people who join you. And this is an incredible thing. So I'd want to know, do you guys feel that? Not only as an interpersonal between you, but that you feel that sense when you're with other people, talking to them. People, you've never met me and you don't know me from anyone, but you get a connection, a feeling. Do you sense that in your guests?
I'll let you take that first, Ryan.
I can tell you that there, to some degree, especially going back and talking to my wife and to the kids and friends and things of that nature, as we've kind of started getting this podcast out here, because it's pretty new, and they start asking the questions. And then whenever I go into what, at least some of the answers before the podcast is kind of edited and do all that, they're like, y'all really talk like that? And I was like, yeah. And to the point where my wife's like, okay, you can't not do this. I see how much beneficial this is for you. And then whenever, I've had a couple of people listen and they go back, and good example is my 19-year-old daughter. There is no real reason why that she should listen to a podcast like this with our age demographic and find it interesting.
Right.
At least in my head, that's what I was thinking. And she freaking loves it. She was like, oh my God, that's funny.
She told my son about it.
Yeah. So, they're enjoying it. So it started getting me to the point like, okay, we might be on to something here. And yeah, it may not, would be awesome if we were smartless. But the reality is that's probably not in the cards. But regardless of what comes out of this, I think that there's going to be enough people that if they really kind of dig in and listen, and especially having, wonderful guests like yourself on here, they may come into this and go, okay, I thought this was this. I didn't realize you were going to do some of this over here, because we'll do that. It's funny because, we'll come in and we don't tell each other what each question is. So I may come in and ask a question that is, talking about dogma or getting into something or whatever, and he asks something completely lighthearted, or he'll come in with the deep question going, oh, okay, I see what you did last week. And then I throw out, vampires just took over the earth. Do you want to kill them or do you want to become a vampire? And that inevitably still gets into some really deep thoughts about stuff. So it's almost like unintentionally we're masking, okay, this silly question, but we're getting at, kind of the root of what probably a lot of people are thinking, but may not be willing to say. Because like you said, especially in our demographic, there's probably not a lot of 50, year old people that are willing to kind of have the conversations.
I'm not 50 yet. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. I'm 49 3/4.
Yeah, that's funny, Dallas. I'd like to get your thoughts on this, but I do think it kind of plays in this because of the self question. But on one of the, maybe last week or something. But anyway, it may not even be out. But Jarrod said that we were talking about what you see in the mirror. And one of his employees said, what did you look like before your hair went gray? Jarrod got pissed off. He was like, what the fuck you mean? My hair's not gray. And so he was like, I don't see that. So
yeah. I'm going to have to do what both of you did, I think, and shave my head. Anyway, my hair is, by the way, you can't see me. We can determine that. But my hair is, let's say, 93% gray, but I still only see the dark hair when I look in the mirror. To answer your question, this has been, I guess, I tell everybody I bring it up to that this has definitely been cathartic for me. It just gives me some time to just sit and reflect on myself and Ryan and I's friendship, and then having people like you on really challenge what I don't know so much that you challenged what I thought, because I do agree with everything that you've said, but seeing it presented in that fashion, I guess, it's very real to hear you say how much that's helped you or whatever, to look at your life that way. And it makes me wonder how much of my own bullshit I believe, I guess, So anyway, all this I think can do nothing but good to talk about shit like this. So
yeah,
I guess that's
good.
That's it for me.
Sweet.
What else? Anybody else got anything good?
Yeah, so Dallas, we'll definitely have links to the books and things of that nature when we put this out. So I think that anybody that listens to this or anybody that can get their hands on it, it's only going to give them an opportunity to, God, if nothing else, right? He has, so what can you do? Write a book, thinking about how you phrase that. And then I asked a similar question. It was like, okay, great. Now, how do you really do this? You do what you just did, right? You just write a book.
Do it.
You do a podcast.
Yeah.
And, all we can do is try to help people and show them a different way and a different, mentality or a different way to approach things. And if they want to take that opportunity and they want to look at, here's some tools. And if you don't, then, they're going to doomed to repeat that. They're going to have the Groundhog Day. So, if you're having those challenges, or even if you're not having those challenges, what harm is it in trying to live more presently? I mean, what's the worst case scenario of really being aware? Like you said, what if?
All right.
Okay, let me say this final thing.
Okay.
When I look into a new baby's face, I see beauty, love, and happiness. That's it. It's before its story. That's all it is. My mother died 8 weeks ago. 2 hours before she died, I looked into her face, and what do I see? The same thing as the baby's face. All I saw was beauty, love, and happiness, a life well lived. That was it. At the start of our life and the end of our life, we are our real self. Just that beauty, love, and happiness. In between is a story that we cover it with in a drama. That's what we do in between those positions. We should be able to live in those positions every day. That is our true self, that beauty, love, and happiness. That's it. All the rest is a drama, a story. That's all. That's what I think.
All right.
Awesome.
With that said, we'll let you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. You're doing a great job.
And just like that, another episode of Two Guys, Two Questions is in the books.
We laughed. We learned. Well, we mostly just laughed.
Yeah, and if you made it this far, congratulations. You now have random knowledge you never asked for.
You're welcome.
Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. Or don't, but just know if you don't, we're bringing back the squeaky toys.
Oh, it's coming back either way.
Until next time, same two guys, two questions, and absolutely no idea what we're doing.
Perfect.